Hey, what's up? Good morning, guys. It's your host, Sean, from the Sean Experiment, and we got some insider information. So, a few days ago, I was making a video about the outbreak on the Odyssey of the seas. And, every news station in the world has said, there was 55 positive cases, which accounted for 1.1% of the total ship. And we got into some details on who and how and asked some questions. And one viewer, we'll call him Austin because that's his real name. And he saw the video, must have had the Wi-Fi package on board, and we've communicated back and forth. If you go back to that video, you can see all the comments, so you know what's coming from a passenger on the Odyssey of the Seas, which actually got back to Fort Lauderdale today. So I haven't seen any updates on the numbers, but we've been getting updated all along. For one, that's why I'm going to invite you to subscribe to the channel. That's why I'm going to invite you to like this video and share this video so we can continue to reach more people and bring you more insider information. So let's get into what we found out about Royal Caribbean's Odyssey of the Seas COVID outbreak. So the original story, of course, like we said, they went to the private island for Royal Caribbean, no problem at all. Got back on the ship, were set to go to Aruba and Curacao over the next several days on an 8-night cruise, and they actually returned to Fort Lauderdale a couple days after leaving. They dropped off 3 passengers who tested positive for COVID-19. 52 crew members were on board for a total of 55 people infected on board, 1.1%. Now, they went back out to sea, continued the cruise, but they did cancel the Aruba and Curacao calls from a combination of Aruba and Curacao saying you can't come here and Royal Caribbean being out of an abundance of caution. So they wanted to just keep the cruise going, but they quarantined and isolated those who had been infected. Now, I went back and forth with Austin quite a bit on some questions and found out how they were working it. So for one, they are only testing you before you get on board. Now, after that, of course, you're going to the private island. In theory, you would have went to Aruba and Curacao, and the guest will never get tested again. The crew are being tested more often, which is why I assume there are more crew becoming positive. Now, Austin told me from on board, they are physical distancing. In the gym, for instance, there was a one treadmill open, one closed down, one open to try and keep feet between people, but they are saying mask. Now, the guy Bob that was snitching on board a few days ago said people weren't really wearing their mask in the gym, they weren't wearing their mask at yoga class or around the ship as often. Austin has told us that was true. However, since the outbreak has been announced, people have been putting more masks on. Now, the boat is becoming more strict in enforcing it more often and reminding you more often to keep your mask on. But also, it seems guests may have gotten a little bit nervous and were just voluntarily wearing the mask in places where they really weren't wearing the mask before. Now, I did ask Austin, are they making you, for instance, like if you have a drink, take your mask off, take a drink, mask back on. And he said they're not being that strict. It's not crazy. Or like, take a bite, mask on, take a bite, mask on, things like that. Not being that strict. So that's great news. I've been to some events where they're like, you take a sip of your beer and you got to put your mask right back on. You're like, man, I haven't even swallowed the drink yet. So that's good news. But they were being more strict. Some of the policies they started enforcing more, for instance, were like 6 people maximum in an elevator. Bob, before on the ship, said that they weren't enforcing that. People were just jamming in there. And then now they said people are starting to listen and only have 6 in there. Now, they did say, there are like limits of people being in the bathroom and things like that, but that is very hard to control because there's so many people on a ship and the bathrooms really just aren't that big. So some things sound like they are getting more strict. Austin was sharing with us he is not a fan of stricter policies, even though he was on the ship of the outbreak with his family. So, we're getting kind of, left and right? Some people say, give me more policy and more strict. And some people say, let me live and let me cruise. I'm here taking the chance already. So what are your thoughts on that? Which side do you? Are you a Bob or are you an Austin? Right? Also, Austin was sharing with us, the number continued to rise. Now, I haven't seen any news outlet yet, and maybe I missed it or maybe they just haven't heard yet, report the new numbers. Now, the captain, it sounds like, was doing a really fantastic job on the ship updating everybody on the ship over the intercom about the number of cases. I know, about a day after the 55 got announced on the intercom, and obviously across the world as well, Austin was saying that number actually did go up. And so they do know that it went up to 69 cases. Then again, the captain came on. It was about 18 hours ago, yesterday. They came on and said that an additional 12 passengers have been tested and tested positive for COVID-19, and that they were up to 1.9% of the ship's population and of positive COVID cases. Now, they didn't give a specific number that time, it sounds like, but we know 55 cases was at 1.1%. So 1.9%, we're creeping on that 100 mark, okay? Probably pretty, mid 90s to 100. And so the number of cases did double. Now, that's about 5,000 or more passenger and crew overall. So, it's still not an overwhelming amount of numbers, but some people think that 1.9% would be, an official outbreak, like really crazy. We know it does cross the CDC's, yellow quarantine zone or whatever, so they're going to be investigating. So it sounds like the ship still went off. They got back today. I'm sure they're going to turn around, clean what they can clean, and get you back out. Right? I did ask Austin, how are they choosing people to test, right? And he said it's only those who have come in close contact with somebody who has become positive. So they're not retesting everybody on board. They're not just coming out and saying, okay, hey, when you get back on the boat, you got to test. They're just saying, were you traced to be in close contact with somebody who had COVID? They're testing you, and then if you test positive, you are asked to isolate and quarantine. If you are not, then you're not, okay? So it's not going to be like a test every day, at least at this point right now. But it does sound like they are going to tighten up on that mask policy, tighten up maybe on the social distancing policies. And we're hoping Austin still had a good time. We'll see if we can catch up with him, and maybe he'll comment on this video and tell us how the cruise was. Was it still exciting? Was it still fun? How were the shows? Were there comedy shows on board? Was everybody wearing a mask in the comedy show? What if they had a drink? Main thing is just, are you having a good time cruising no matter what the policy is? I go on a cruise in 35 days. I think it's 36 days, January the 30th. So I'll be able to personally tell you how my adventure is going. I'm really excited about that. I'll be able to share some videos from the ship, maybe of some of the policies, and tell you guys how that's going. But for now, we're going to rely on great people like Austin to tell us how their adventures are going. So, were you on the Odyssey of the Seas? Were you on another boat that has had a COVID outbreak, or one that hopefully didn't have a COVID outbreak? What was your experience like? Would love to hear in the comments about how cruising is for you right now in today's COVID-infested world. And is it still worth it? Is it still fun? Do you still want to spend the money even though it's a great deal? So comment below, subscribe, share, like, do all those awesome things, and tell us how you're feeling. For now, we just got past Christmas, December 26th. There's only 364 days till next Christmas, but I'll see you way before that. So have an awesome weekend, guys. Thanks for coming, and see ya.